Hello and welcome everybody from winter, where it gets dark just when you finish work. So therefore this is the first video with me having a studio lighting on so I can film after work. In today's video we'll talk about subscriptions, and we all have them like Spotify, Netflix, Disney Plus, but we talk about the cost of subscription and the value you're getting out of your subscription back. And I'll walk you through a method where you can assess a little bit your subscriptions, which you have, how much you pay, what you're getting out of these, and then decide if these subscriptions are a good value for you or not, and maybe cancel a few of them. I at least will do that at the end. Okay, so buckle up. We start here with the cost of subscription. If you think about subscriptions, you have a few of them already at hand. These are your Spotify's, your Audible, your Netflix, your Disney Plus, your YouTube Premium, of course. Maybe even some insurances are also subscriptions if you think about those. And you can think of the cost usually in either monthly or annually. So let's say we look at, let's do Spotify first. So we have Spotify, and we can think the subscription as that. Monthly, we can do annually, and we could even do something like look at it over a time span of 3 years to get a little bit of more sense of, if I'm paying for these subscriptions on the long term, what would that cost me actually? So let's do Spotify first, just to see where we land. Spotify has a monthly cost of $10.99 currently if you do the monthly plan, and this would translate to roughly 132 euros each a year, which is already quite a lot of money if you think about it. If you were asked right now to pay 132 euros to actually have Spotify for a whole year to use, well, it would be hard to swallow, right? At least for me, because it would be, oh wow, there's quite a lot of money to actually sink into Spotify. And still I'm paying it for the last 8 years, something like this, ridiculously. So, but just look at it for 3 years. If you look at it 3 years, this would be 392 euros that you spent over the time span of roughly 3 years on Spotify. Just so we have this in common, if you, let's say, buy an Apple Watch and you plan for it, this is 480 euros maybe, and you plan to wear it for 4 years, an Apple Watch is actually cheaper than owning Spotify. Just to put that into perspective, right? We can do hardware, of course, as well. So then let's think about another subscription that we could use. This would be Netflix. Why not? So we do Netflix, and Netflix here, I don't know the price. Let's just, for the sake of this video, go with $13.99 a month, which would translate, I think this is like the no ads HD but not 4K version. So if we do this, this would roughly be 168 euros, and over 3 years around 503 euros, which is okay, 500 bucks just to have Netflix for 3 years. This is quite the investment, right? This is more expensive than the Apple Watch right now already. So you could decide between changing every 3 years your Apple Watch or having Netflix, basically. Just think about this, because this is quite crazy. Now, as you now see, we've done Spotify for $10.99, we've done Netflix for $13.99. We could do other stuff, but just, you can do the math, right? It's not much here. So maybe just see where we're going from here. So this is a cost perspective. And in this cost perspective, we look at how much are we actually paying for a subscription, just to get like a check and a comparison to just level out the playing field a little bit. Because there are annual subscriptions. Maybe let's do Amazon Prime, just to have this in here. So Prime is, for me at least, $89.99. a year having this, and this would translate then to exactly €7.50 a month, or 270 euros over 3 years. So just having this in mind, Amazon Prime was like years ago this really cheap thing that you just book and then you have everything for free now. And by now we're paying nearly as much as for Spotify just for having Amazon Prime. So just having this there, and this would be like your AirPods Pro every 3 years, or having Amazon Prime, just to give us some Apple product in comparison, just to see where it stacks up. Now, let's maybe now look at how much we get actually out of our subscription, because this is important as well to actually gauge how useful they are later on. So if we move this up, then we can think about our subscriptions in two ways. This is, for me, in my opinion, this is on the one hand, your usage, and on the other hand, then this is the joy of using it. Let's just call it joy, right? And these go hand in hand. The one basically says, how much do I use it? And the other one says, if I'm using it or just owning it, having access to it, how much joy is it for me to have it? So for example, it could be like, we're doing a few examples in a few seconds. I don't use Spotify that much, but it brings me joy to have access to all this music whenever I like. So my joy is pretty high, even though I don't use it very much. But maybe let's try quantifying it a little bit, shall we? So we go ahead and let's do like this. Let's go from 0 to 10 and just mark the middle with a 5, maybe, roughly the middle. And let's see now if we look at usage, how much actually do I use the subscription that I'm currently looking at. So for me personally, let's do my usage. Let's do green for Spotify. This would actually be quite low. I don't listen to Spotify that much. I'm always, well, ashamed is a hard word, but I'm always shocked at the year review of my Spotify, where other people have like 2 hours a day and I have like 3 minutes a day or something ridiculously short like this. I like listening to music now and then. I like having access to this music, but I don't use it that much as other people do. Now, if I would look at Netflix, for example, I use it especially together with my girlfriend a little bit more than Spotify actually. I'll rate it, let's do an even 5 for Netflix. So I use it not all the time. There could be subscriptions that I use way more. YouTube would be one, for example. But I use it more than I use Spotify. Both like hours used as well as how often I tend to use it. So this is usage. But there's another one that is interesting. This is actually the joy of using or having it. So this would be joy of using, let's say, owning it. Well, no, we don't own. Let's do having. Having access. Okay, and we do the same scale, so we keep it fair. So we do it like this, so we can compare. And for me, the interesting part is, now, if I look at it, I have way more joy having access or using Spotify than I have actually using Netflix. So if I would mark it, it would be maybe something like here. I really much like having access to this music compared to Netflix, especially because Spotify has basically all the music, where all the video platforms are very fragmented and I don't have all the videos, TV shows and movies available on one platform. So this, for example, would put Netflix maybe more like in here. It's nice to have, but it's not like this great to actually have it, right? It's more, well, whatever. There are other platforms out there. And This basically, these both categories now, for me, display the gain that you actually have of using or owning a subscription to these services. So these two together would form something that I will now call the gain. This is what you gain from actually paying the money that we discussed earlier. So now looking at this gain, what can we do with it? We can look at it just without factoring in cost and just thinking about, oh, which subscription actually gives me the most, so which I get most back from, and just noting that down. And this in itself is interesting, just to see what is like the biggest player in here. And even though you or most people don't see it, you could even factor in something like phones, for example, because as you renew phones every few years, they are basically some kind of subscription, right? So if you think about what we had beforehand, just going back, if you would say we have a 3-year thing, you would renew your phone every 3 years, for example, and you would pay 500 euros for a phone, you can pretty much compare it to your Netflix subscription that you have right here, where you pay 300 bucks over 3 years. So the gain and this usage versus joy that we have here is something that you can even do with your phone. You can do it with your tablet. You can do it with everything that you plan to renew at some point in the future, right? It could be your AirPods, anything basically, which you know they will, let's call it, degrade or decay over time, and you will need to replace them at some point. Even shoes, for God's sake. If you have one pair of shoes and you know you will need to buy a new one every year because you've just run through them, then basically this is a subscription in some sort, because you can drill it down to a monthly cost and see how much are you actually using them and how much are they giving to you, and deciding if it's a good investment, basically. But maybe let's go even further. So we have this gain. This is the usage and the joy that we get out of the subscription. Now let's bring those two together. Let's have our gain and bring this gain actually over the cost. And for simplicity's sake, you could do annual cost, you could do 3-year cost. I'll do monthly cost, just to dump everything down into one number that is comparable. So let's do month, but the time frame doesn't matter actually, as long as you keep consistent. And this now would be the real value of your subscription. And doing it like this, you can actually figure out quite a bit about yourself. What you value would be the gain at the one point, but how much you pay for it, and if it's adequate, and how it stacks up against the other subscriptions. Now you can bring this together. And to bring this together, I would actually now switch to my computer screen to show you a way how you can actually calculate and plot the value and have it a little bit easier for yourself. And if you like, just let me know and I'll share you the screen or the sheet or a copy of the sheet, so we can work on this. So you can work on this for yourself. But the concept should be quite clear. Okay, and here you are now on my subscription calculator that I've built within Google Sheets. The subscription calculator is pretty much straightforward. You have a few columns. I've filled a few just for you to know. You have your subscription first, and there you just plot in the name. You basically only fill out the blue cells and it calculates the rest. And I filled in a few subscriptions for me, so I've done Spotify. I've defined the usage, as we talked about earlier, from 0 to 10. So I've defined 3 for the usage and 7 for the joy of Spotify. So I quite like having access to Spotify and using it. And I've put in a monthly cost here, like just the cost that you pay, and decide if it's annual or monthly, and it auto-populates the rest. So it says, okay, $10.99 a month makes $131.88 a year, or nearly $400 over 3 years. And then it calculates the gain. The gain is basically just multiplying usage and joy and then dividing it by the monthly cost. There's a value that you have in the very end. And now looking over this sheet, it's actually quite interesting. So you see, Spotify gives me a value of 1.91 for $10.99 a month. And Netflix, the other example that we have earlier, gives me a value of 1.79, so a little bit lower than Spotify, for $13.99. So even though Netflix is a little bit more expensive than Spotify, just looking at the gain, I get a little bit more out of it than compared to Spotify actually. So the value is roughly lower. YouTube for me is like the clear winner of everything. YouTube is, I use it every day for, I guess, hours at least. So the usage is very high. It could be higher, of course, everywhere, but it's super high usage for me. And the joy of not having ads and having YouTube videos play in the background actually is for me phenomenally high. I will ever have this, except that Google does some very stupid things. But basically, I will always subscribe to YouTube as of now. And annually, I'll pay 120 euros for this, which is $10 a month, or 360 over 3 years. And the value, the gain is 90 and the value is 9. So this is super high for me. This is the highest value that I have. Prime comes after this with a value of 6.4. And I've actually put in also the Adobe Photo subscription, which I use a little bit like for Lightroom and Photoshop for the YouTube thumbnails and my photography. And the joy of having access to this and being able to use Photoshop whenever I like and having access to Lightroom Classic whenever I like is high, despite Lightroom being super shit of an app. but it is an app that I know, I like, and I have my photos in there. So I actually quite like having this, because not having access to this subscription would suck for me at least. So I've gave it a 7. There is room to grow, obviously, but quite that much. I'm paying around $10 a month, so this would be then a gain of 28, and for $9.99 would be 2.8 in value. And I could go on actually. Let's maybe do something rather ridiculous, just to drive a point home. Let's say you would get an iPhone, a new iPhone every 3 years, right? Just for some simplicity. New iPhone. And you use your iPhone, as I at least use my iPhone every day for multiple hours. So from a usage perspective, compared to other subscription, I need to give this a 10 basically, because I use it every day. And having a relatively new phone with all the new bells and whistles, at least for me, gives like the most amount of joy. So my phone is very important to me. So this is that high. Now, a new iPhone goes like for, I don't know, let's do one of the cheapest ones, I think, $7.99. Yeah, let's check. I'll do the German prices now, but you can figure this out for you. Let's do the cheapest brand new iPhone 16. What's here? Store iPhone. iPhone starting $949. So this is where we're starting at $949, the cheapest iPhone that you can get currently. And if you would like to switch your iPhone every 3 years, let's just divide it by 3. So I'll just put in $949 divided by 3. So I'm paying an annual amount of 316 euros an average. And if you now just plug all of these in and seeing, this would be a cost, monthly cost of just owning your iPhone every 3 years, a brand new model, is 26 euros. And this is in 3 years, the 949 that we just discussed. With the gain of 100 that you're getting out of this subscription, you can actually boil this down. This is a value of 3.979. So at least for me, an iPhone, paying for the iPhone would be way better, even every 3 months, this nearly $1,000, compared to a Spotify subscription or Netflix or even the Adobe Photo subscription, just from the value I'll get out of it. But as soon as I would drop the gain just a tiny bit, let's say the usage would be innate. Yeah, okay, it would still be rather high. So yeah, it's just like you'll get a lot out of it. And so you can actually go in there just to figure out for yourself what's important for you. You can do the same stuff for AirPods, which we discussed. Every 3 years, a pair of AirPods would be roughly the same as your Amazon Prime subscription. And you can figure out like a little bit like everything that you buy on maybe multi-year tenancy, how much actually is it a month, and just compare it against other subscriptions, because this also allows you, when you now think about what would be, let's do an iPad, just so we figure out. So let's maybe do an iPad. Let's do the basic iPad Air. Oh god, I'm so bad navigating this website. So the basic iPad Air is $699. And let's say we do $699 and we change our iPad every, I don't know, 4 years maybe. Let's do 4 years. So we have $699 divided by 4. So this is an annual cost of 174 euros that you would pay. New iPad. The usage would be, of course, way lower than your phone, but maybe you're the iPad guy or girl that use it quite often. Let's do a 6, for example. And the joy of using it, maybe you just absolutely love having an iPad around. Let's keep it at 10, okay? So if we just plug this in, this would actually say, oh, hold on, your iPad, just the value by money is actually higher for your iPad than for your phone. Going for this expensive phone every 3 years and for this less expensive iPad every 4 years. So this would be okay from the value that you get out of it to think about the iPad. Now, of course, fair is fair. At some point, having a calculator that works for subscription might at some point just get a little bit out of touch if you're looking at this really high purchase decisions, because you would maybe need usage and joy to go maybe even a little bit higher, or have this more distinct to factor in this really expensive purchases. But it gives you like an idea, like something to think about before you do purchase, and also to compare subscriptions which try to lure you in with, oh, this is like, I don't know, a monthly subscription of just $12.99, to just plug this in and see, oh, how much does it really cost and how does it compare? So for example, just looking at the new iPad, by the way, the new iPad over a 3-year term now is $524. So the new iPad would be nearly as expensive as Netflix is. So you could basically decide between just having access to Netflix or having an iPad, right? Just having this comparison, and this is powerful just to really think about this, what this means. Now, I don't want to ramble on any further because I think I've driven home my point and what I think is valuable to think about subscriptions. So what I want to leave you with is just a food for thought. Think about which subscriptions do you actually have, plot them into a calculator to make sure that the subscriptions that you're paying with your own hard-earned money for each month actually reflect the value that you want your subscription to have and the joy you're getting out of it. And maybe think about eliminating one of the few subscriptions that don't give you that much value. I know for myself, I want to start my new year 2025 actually removing at least 3 subscriptions that I currently pay each month. I've not done this exercise completely. I don't know which ones these will be, and I hope it will not be Spotify, because the joy part of Spotify is actually quite hard. It's quite high for me, so I would like to keep Spotify. But let's see where I'm at, and let's see if I can manage to actually just dump 3 of my subscriptions to save a little bit of money. Just to have a nice little food of thought. I've not actually showcased this earlier, I forgot to talk about this. This calculator of mine also shows you the monthly cost that you have each month if you have all of these subscriptions running. And without the phone and without the iPad, this was already over $50 a month, which is over $600 a year and quite significant already. So all these subscriptions add up quite fast, and all these here, this is $4.99 a month, and this is $7.99 a month, this is $10.99 a month, and so on and so forth. If you just list all of your subscription out there, you will see that you spend a horrific large amount, like over $1,000 probably each year on subscriptions. And you need to really think about what could all of these subscriptions actually do for me at another point, and maybe cut a few. Maybe try to remove 250 euros each year in annual cost that you have, just to free them up for something else. You could have, I don't know, a birthday party for $250. Get some food, get some drinks, it would be good, right? So maybe just think about and compare them to other stuff that costs X amount of money each year, each month, etc. Just to really gauge where we are at. Okay. Now, thank you so much for watching. I hope you've got some value out of this video. I at least had quite a lot of fun doing this, also shooting my first video here in my, let's call it studio, like when it's dark here. I hope the video quality will be okay. I've not tested this beforehand. And if you like this video, maybe give it a like, maybe drop a comment below. Let me know if you want to have this calculator sheet and I'll upload it, or do it yourself, it's not that hard. And I'll talk to you in the next video. Thank you, goodbye.